Yo, yo, yo. Welcome to the stream. Happy Sunday, everybody. Hope everyone's doing well. Uh, got a little bit of a late start today. Sorry, I know I'm looking a little tired. I woke up in the middle of the night. I was watching my Braves get beat by the Phillies. So, a little tired today, but listen, I got my coffee in me. I've got some good NFL content for us to kind of rock through today and be able to get into things pretty quickly here. So, I hope everyone's doing well. And again, thank you for tuning in. I definitely appreciate it. So, just want to preface real quick. I know that I'm doing this right now during the Jacksonville and Buffalo game, so hopefully you guys got that turned on. I can't right now. I want to make sure that I got it turned on in the corner, but I'm trying to give you guys my attention right now. So I know that game has already started. As I checked last, which was about 2 minutes ago, it was 11-7, Jacksonville leading. So kind of an interesting game, but most people should know who they should be starting in terms of Jacksonville and Buffalo. You've got some really good players on both teams there. I really thought it was going to be a little bit of a different game in the first half, but it seemed like Jacksonville was kind of keeping the momentum until the end of the half there, where Buffalo gets a big stop, the turnover. Jacksonville can't convert on points, and I know Buffalo gets the ball at the beginning of the second half. So uh, just a few guys, real quick, that I'd be looking at if I was you, and this would be starting on a weekly basis. Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, those guys are must starts every single week. There's no questions about that. In deeper leagues, I know myself, I'm rocking Gabe Davis, Dalton Kincaid in a few leagues. On the other side, and you could even get away with Dawson Knox in a real like 18 team league if you're playing in something like that, but. For me, I think it's Kincaid and Davis would be the next two. You got James Cook there, but I wasn't too high on him today. I didn't think the game script was really going to favor him that much. But again, James Cook, probably a fourth to fifth round pick, depending on what type of league you were in. You're probably going to be looking to start that guy, especially with some of the teams that are on bye weeks this week. So don't always feel like, okay, like I can never start this guy. You got to take a look at the guys that are available, the guys that are on bye weeks, who you're going to have to sub into some of those. So definitely be on the lookout for that. On the other side of the ball, you got Trevor Lawrence. I know the Jags really, me personally, I expected them to be a lot different this year in terms of how they were going to be playing. They've had some rough goes so far. Etienne, I know he's been playing pretty well and stuff, but Trevor Lawrence, I expected him, 2 to 3 touchdowns a game, and we really haven't been getting that from him. But I think this is also a team that's also got a lot of playmakers on it. I see them suffering from some of the same things that I see other teams doing too. Not running the ball effectively, not converting well on third down, and it's tough to be able to put up a lot of great offensive numbers if you're not running the ball effectively and you're not converting on third down. So I personally own Calvin Ridley in quite a few leagues, and I'm seeing him. I've been a little nervous. He had that great showing in the first week, and really has been kind of subpar since then. Hoping he's going to get back on track today. You've got Christian Kirk as well, kind of the PPR guy there as well. He should be, you should be starting him almost every single week. Again, depending on who your receivers are. If you're out there rocking, two number ones and a number two, maybe you don't need Kirk to start for you and stuff. But most leagues that are pretty competitive, Kirk seems like he'd be a good starter to plug in there. Same thing with Evan Engram. A little bit of a deeper league, but I definitely think you're going to be hard pressed to find 12 tight ends that are going to be better than him on a weekly basis. So also Zay Jones, and I know. Listen, I was watching part of the game. I know he caught that first half touchdown, but this is a guy that had a great season last year. I expected him to pop off at some point this year. Maybe this is the game that he gets another touchdown too, or just puts up really good stats for you. So. Be on the lookout for that. I actually picked Buffalo to win this game. Seemed like they were going to have the momentum going into the second half. So let's see what ends up happening with that. Okay, so moving along here, we'll go on to the next game that we've got here, which is going to be Houston and Atlanta. And this is actually kind of a great one to talk about just because we've seen CJ Stroud really start to mature. And if you listen to my Pulse podcast that I do with my buddy Al, we talked about CJ Stroud this week, and you're really seeing a coming of age with him. This guy has stepped in. Yeah, he wasn't the number one pick. And honestly, people didn't really even think at number two that he was going to be the best pick either. With it being the second quarterback off the board, people were saying Richardson was going to be better. There was some rumors that other guys in the draft may produce better than him, but he's stepped in. He's embraced the city. He's played very well, and you've seen the maturity through the games. The first few weeks, giving up a bunch of sacks and stuff. Last two games, he didn't give up a sack, and the guy just isn't turning the ball over. When you look at what he's able to do, and what he's able to bring to that team, it's not like they've got a bunch of number one receivers on that team. He's playing with guys like Nico Collins, Tank Dell, and they're producing there. So I definitely am very high on CJ Stroud and what he's bringing, and they're going to be a tough team week in and week out. We're looking at a Laramie Tunzel return too, which definitely helps him. You're talking about one of the premier left tackles in the league. He's going to give him more protection coming into this game, which is going to be really nice for him. Give him a little more time, and you should see that production tick up even more, which is crazy because he's still putting up great numbers as it is. It's just going to give him more time to be able to make better decisions. So maybe get to that second or third read in terms of the coverage. So another piece, Dameon Pierce. And listen, this guy, a lot of people are not high on him, but based on the first few games that he's had. But each game he's gotten a little bit better. You got to understand about this guy. He's getting hit in the backfield the majority of the time. He's improving more and more on his yards per carry every single game, and his schedule is very favorable for fantasy the rest of the year. Look at some of the teams that they're playing against the rest of the year and tell me that he's not going to pop off. This is a guy that I really, really liked at the beginning of the year. I ended up trading for him first week of the season. I traded Treylon Burks and J.K. Dobbins. Burks is hardly playing at all right now. Dobbins is out for the season, and I'm starting to lick my lips because I know Dameon Pierce is coming into his own on this. So definitely like what he's able to bring, and you're going to see him get better and better each week. As he's starting to grind defenses down, as Houston is able to sustain some of these leads, you're also going to see them run the ball more effectively and pound the ball with him, which I think is just going to help his numbers and his production. I'm looking last week, Tank Dell, he had an off week against Pittsburgh, but they honestly just didn't need to utilize him the way they had in previous games. They were winning by so much, and you see that more and more, I think, this season as teams are starting to you're seeing some of the top teams in the league distance themselves a lot more from the bottom teams in the league. And when that happens, the game script changes. Just because, unless you're the Miami Dolphins, right, and throwing the ball. But even the game that they were playing against Denver, they were just running the piss out of the ball. You saw it, with Mostert and Achane ended up with 4 touchdowns apiece. I mean, it just – some of these guys get scripted out. It doesn't mean that Tyreek Hill's not good. It doesn't mean that some of the other guys on that offense aren't good. They're just getting scripted out of the games because of how the game flow is going. So last week, I think it was Nico Collins' chance to kind of pop off, and he was excellent. So Pittsburgh really focused on shutting down Tank Dell, and they were able to kind of do that. And CJ Stroud was looking to his next option, which was Collins. So definitely really like that and the way he's able to process and play. And I see a little bit in terms of his quick processing. He looks very similar in my mind to the way Tua is able to process. I'm not saying they're the same. I think they're at different points right now in their career, but I definitely am liking what I'm seeing from CJ Stroud. I think he looks very promising. So I am going to continue. Oh, Big Peppy Nips is here. Yes, Big Peppy Nips. Oh, welcome, bud. Thanks for joining the chat, man. Like I said, I definitely like what I'm seeing out of CJ Stroud. Bijan Robinson, I think, is going to have a great game this game as well. It's hard to script him out of the game because he's able to do so much on the ground. He's able to catch the ball as well out of the backfield, and even they're able to split him out. You're seeing some of the jukes that he's able to make and making defenders miss. He's getting extra yardage on every single time he touches the ball. And that's just a testament to who he is as a playmaker. So guys that I'm targeting in this game, definitely Bijan Robinson. He's a must start week in and week out. Unless something drastic changes in Atlanta, this guy is going to be a must start for the next few years. So CJ Stroud as well. Again, he's been playing very well, and I think he's playing himself into QB1 territory. He's definitely had some very, very good games to start this season, but I think you're going to see him become more consistent with that. I'm starting Dameon Pierce in one of my leagues. I think he's going to end up having a good game against Atlanta. And Atlanta's typically a team that it's difficult to run the ball against, but I see Houston jumping out to an early lead through the air and then being able to run the ball more effectively. Tank Dell, also another guy, and Nico Collins in PPR, but I prefer Tank Dell over Nico Collins in PPR leagues. All right, let's see here. Moving on to the next game that we've got. We've got Carolina at Detroit. So this game, I think Detroit's going to look to extend their lead in the NFC North. Basically, you look at the other teams that are in that division right now. Green Bay seems that like they could be okay, but they're really not to that point yet where they're really establishing themselves week in and week out. Chicago finally had 2 weeks that they looked decent. Their defense looked terrible last week. Their defense still didn't look great this week, but they played better. Still giving up, 30 points, I think it was to Washington isn't a good look. But their offense is playing much better. It seems like Justin Fields coming into his own and getting some good play out of DJ Moore as well. So, and then the last team, Minnesota. This is the only team that really scares me in this division. That could threaten Detroit. Minnesota's offense is very, very scary. They've got great playmakers up and down. Their defense is what's kind of holding them back. And I know a lot of people point the finger at Cousins, but if you're playing on a team that has a defense that's given up an average of 13 points a game, you can go out and afford to make one mistake a game and still win the game. The problem is his defense is not keeping them to 13 to 17 points. They're giving up 24, 28 per game, and they're not giving them a chance to be able to win the game. So with that being said, I think Detroit is definitely the team to beat in this division. They run the ball effectively. They've got an excellent offensive line there. On defense, they're playing well behind, Aiden Hutchinson leading the charge there. I just think with this game in particular, Carolina's D's given up a ton of yards on the ground. And like I said, Detroit runs the ball very well. With them being able to run the ball so well, I think they're going to be able to establish a lot of dominance up front. You should look for their offensive line to be physical early and often, and you're going to see Montgomery have a big day. Now, Gibbs should have. People are very upset about Jahmyr Gibbs and his usage. Listen, guys, he was the 12th pick in the draft. I get it. They spent a first-round pick on him. They're not going to let him loose and give him 30 carries a game. They're just not going to do it. They're thinking long-term and into the postseason. In order for them to be able to do that, they need to be able to ease him into this offense and use him when they need him. And that's primarily on passing downs. That's where he was an excellent back at Alabama. That's what they're going to have him do here. So pump the brakes a little bit on this guy. They're going to sprinkle him in on passing downs, but he honestly may not be needed that much this game. I really expect Montgomery to have a massive day. Sam Laporta is going to help moving the chains. He's been very, very instrumental with helping Goff be able to get those first downs and keep moving the chains. They do not have Amon-Ra, it looks like. At least he was listed as doubtful. I have not seen the update on it yet, but I'm pretty sure he's not going to be playing due to that abdominal strain. They do get some good news in the sense that Jameson Williams is going to be back from suspension. And this is all this offense really needed, is a guy that can stretch the defense. And that's exactly what Jameson Williams is meant to do. So I really think once Amon-Ra is healthy, once we see him and Jameson Williams on the field at the same time, and with Laporta too, this offense has a ton of weapons. And I really think that Goff is going to be able to lead this team in the right direction and to a good playoff matchup. So what I'm seeing here, I really think Goff is going to he could be productive today, but I just don't see it happening. And they're just not going to need it. With them running the ball, I don't expect Goff to have a big day. I really don't. Carolina, sorry guys, I really just don't see any playmakers on this team that I'm considering at all. If you're really in a pinch, maybe Adam Thielen. But I'm not impressed by any of these guys really. I know Miles Sanders, a lot of people drafted him thinking he was going to get tons of production because he got the big contract. He's almost splitting carries 50-50 with Chuba Hubbard. Like, I just, there's no one on this team that I'm really like, oh yeah, I need this guy on my squad. Some of the guys I'm targeting in this game, Montgomery, Laporta. I'd lean away from Goff this week just because of the game script, but and like I mentioned, Thielen only if you're desperate due to the bye week. Keep an eye on the return of Jameson Williams, though. You want to monitor to see how involved he's going to be. There is a chance that he could catch a touchdown this game, but I'm going to keep my eye on him to see exactly how much he's incorporated into the offense with his first week back. All right, moving on here, Tennessee at Indy. So Indy's going to look to break away from the pack here behind Anthony Richardson, and I really think they're going to have a chance to do that here. He's exciting to watch, man. He really is. Like, the AR show is here; it's here to stay. As long as he's figuring out how to be able to place in a safer manner, which I know Shane Steichen is helping him with that. I think it's going to be a lot of fun for years to watch him, CJ Stroud, these guys in this division. It's going to be great to watch. So, and even Bryce Young, once he's able to get going, if he can establish himself, this could be a very, very good division. Trevor Lawrence clearly is probably the best quarterback in this division right now, but they're right on his heels trying to prove him wrong. So I just think in terms of Indianapolis, when AR is on the field, they're drastically a better team. You know, the other piece of it is Jonathan Taylor comes back this week, and I think he's going to look really good. I know there was rumors about him possibly being injured and stuff like that, but I just don't see it, man. It was all contract related. That's really what it came down to. Was he wanted to get paid. He was trying not to budge. Irsay didn't want to budge, but they really needed him back. I know Zach Moss was playing well, but listen, Zach Moss is no Jonathan Taylor. And I just think really it comes back to, like, it's amazing how much money can change a marriage, right? This was a guy that was saying through his agent, like, I'm not playing for Indianapolis, trade me, get rid of me. And, they really didn't, they called his bluff, right? Like, they ended up having this stalemate. They put him on the pup for 4 weeks. He comes off, and now he's able to play. I think he's going to have a big game against Tennessee. Now, I know Tennessee is very good against the run, but they're going to look to put him in position to be able to gain big chunks of yards early in the game and get him comfortable in this offense again. I also think you're going to continue to see progression in the passing game with Michael Pittman, Josh Downs. I really like the relationship between AR and Josh Downs, and I'm not a huge fan of Pittman. I know there's some people that are. I've gotten in arguments with friends about it. Listen, I just don't think he's a number one receiver. I know some people would love to have him on their team. I'm just not one of those guys. So one thing that Mike Vrabel's very good at is being able to scheme guys out of the game. You've seen him already do that this season with other teams that they've been playing against. The Titans are riding pretty high off that drubbing of Cincinnati, which was kind of an embarrassing loss that Cincinnati had. And Derrick Henry finally had a solid game, right? 22 carries, 122 yards, and a tutty. More impressive was his 5.5 yards per carry. You look at the games he had prior to this, he just did not look good at all. And he gave you glimpses last week of seeing this guy like, oh yeah, this is the Derrick Henry we remember. I also will say that I'm not a big advocate for Derrick Henry starting off great early in the season. He's a guy that come November, come December, he becomes better. And a lot of guys start to wear down as the season goes, but I feel like he's not one of those guys. He seems to get better as the season goes on, and you're seeing big games out of him later in the season. So maybe that's what we're seeing, a slow first few weeks. Now he starts to get his rhythm going, and he's going to continue that. There's talks of the team moving on from Tannehill. I personally don't see it. And listen, I know some people are not fans of Ryan Tannehill. I am. I had him on my fantasy team a few years ago when he was very good and not turning the ball over. This team was very good going into the playoffs. I don't see why people are begging for Malik Willis and Will Levis. I remember how that looked, and it was very, very ugly. So be careful what you wish for with trying to move on from a guy like Tannehill. I know the Jets would be dying for a guy like him, so be thankful for what you do have because it could be a lot worse. So guys that I'm targeting in this game, obviously Anthony Richardson. He's got that Justin Fields-esque type of ceiling to him and that potential where he can go off and rush for 2-3 touchdowns a game, or he could also throw for 2 or 3, or I say or, but and he could do that as well. So we don't really know exactly what he's capable of yet because we haven't seen that absolute monster breakout game, but this could be it for him. So again, JT signed that extension. He's been healthy. If you're not playing this guy, why did you draft him? I get it if you're a little tentative on it, but listen, plug him in. They're going to use him. They're going to get him into the lineup early and often, and he's going to be successful. You will not regret it. Michael Pittman, Josh Downs in deeper leagues, again, you may not want to be playing guys like that. I know people are higher on Pittman than they are Downs, but listen, it's a bye week. Some of these guys are going to have to be in your lineup. That's the way it's going to end up being. All right, so moving on here real quick, we've got Miami and we got the Giants at Miami. This, I think, could actually be a blowout. And Miami and Tua, they're going to get back on track against the Giants. Unfortunately, the Giants are just the doormat for the rest of the NFL right now. Every team seems to be getting their lickings in on them, and it could be another crushing blow for them. Nice little wow reference there. So Daboll, listen, he's a good coach. I really like him. I just, this team is just not playing well right now. They're missing Saquon Barkley big time. And what makes me kind of chuckle about this is earlier in the season, before in training camp when he's asking for his money, they don't want to pay this guy, right? Like it's like, oh yeah, he's got to make a big stink in order to be able to get paid. You think he's worth that running back money now? Like, look at how this team's playing right now and how much they need this guy on that team. Daniel Jones cannot do it on his own. Like, you went out and paid him 4 times what you will Saquon, and it's just an ugly showing. What you really need is a good, healthy Saquon Barkley in there, being able to run the ball effectively. And it just, listen, injuries is stuff that happens. I don't like the sprain. I really don't. I think it does not bode well for Saquon the rest of the year, but I really think this is a guy that you have to lock up. I would be shocked to see the Giants let him walk. The other big piece of this, and I don't hear a lot of people talking about this, but they're missing Andrew Thomas. This is the Giants' second best player on this team, and with him missing a tackle, no wonder the Giants gave up 11 sacks last week. Like I don't know. Like, eventually, when you start giving up sacks in bunches like that, you've got to get together with the offensive line and be like, listen, we can't let this happen. Run 2 tight ends out there. Change the game script of what you're doing because they're getting too much pressure on him. But you let Daniel Jones get hit 10 times a game, and I know he didn't have all 11 sacks, but gave up 10 of them. You let him get hit that many times per game, you're going to have a Joe Burrow situation very quickly in your hands where this guy's just – he's hurt all the time because of that. So they've got to figure out a way to try to remedy that. They also need their wide receivers to step up. It reminds me a bit of the issues that are occurring in Kansas City with how they've been dealing with just subpar wide receiver play. They've got a solid tight end in Waller, just like Kelsey, right? Like, I'm not putting them on the same planet. Kelsey's obviously the best tight end to ever play the game, but Waller is an actual specimen out there. He just gets no help from the wide receivers. Like, they went out, they drafted Jalen Hyatt. I just haven't seen much out of him. I know Wan'Dale Robinson's coming back. It doesn't seem like they have anyone that's that good at receiver on this team that's able to get open and be like, yo, throw me the ball. I've got this. And, I know a lot of people want to place all the blame on Daniel Jones. It's not fully him. The line, the receivers, all of this stuff needs to be addressed, and the defense is just not great. When they're giving up so many points, it puts a lot of pressure on the offense to try to have to change their game script and try to come back from these big leads. So with Miami, I expect them to get back on the horse again, right? And just to come out with a vengeance. Tua brought up a good point about losing last week. Maybe some people in the building needed it. And I know not a lot of people understand that, but you gain a lot from losing in terms of understanding and perspective. And I know there's a lot of people in the world that don't fully feel that way, but that is something that definitely happens. You gain perspective when you lose sometimes, and it's necessary to do that. You need to understand where you are as a team, and sometimes you're able to overcome adversity, sometimes you're not, but you should learn the lesson from that. Hopefully, with Buffalo kicking their butts, hopefully it humbled them a little bit, and they're going to come out strong. I look for Tyreek and Waddle to ball out, and I expect a big workload for Achane Mostert as well. Achan's been one of the most exciting rookies for the last few weeks. I still expect a timeshare with Mostert, but don't forget Wilson might be coming back soon too. I don't think Wilson threatens either one of them. I see him getting in the vicinity of like 6 to 8 carries a game or 6 to 8 touches a game. I just don't see him dipping into Achan or Mostert's workload too much. But if you do get a chance, kind of a funny thing that had come out with Evan Neal from the Giants, they were complaining about he was getting interviewed about how they were playing and stuff, and the fans kind of booing them, and he came out and had some really nasty things to kind of say about the fans, flipping hot dogs and hamburgers and stuff. And if you get a chance, go watch the clip on Dom Lagrashi. He he really he has a nice rant where he talks about Evan Neal and cutting him from the team and what they should do, just because of how he treated the fans. And it's true. Like, I know I'm laughing about it, but trying to make light of it. It's kind of disgusting, some of the stuff that he said. And a lot of the fans, regardless of what they do for work, none of the fans are getting paid what he's getting paid on the field. And they're paying their hard-earned money to come and see that. They deserve a better product than what the Giants are putting out there right now. So I appreciate him apologizing, but you just really can't say some of that stuff to the fans. In terms of this game, some of the guys I'm looking at, obviously Tua, Tyreek, Waddle, Achane, and Mostert, those are 5 must-start guys every single week. Unless they start showing you massive decline, you need to be starting these guys every single week, especially against this Giants defense. So in terms of the Giants, the only guy I'm really looking at is Waller. They're saying that Saquon's questionable. Listen, this guy's going to be out at least another 2 to 3 weeks. So Waller's the only guy that I'd even be considering, just because they're going to be playing from behind. They need to try to push the ball down the field, and Waller's really the only chance they're going to have to do that. So, all right, let's move on here. Next game we've got New Orleans and the Pats. Okay, so I really think this is the game New England's going to try to bounce back in. I just don't think it's it's not going to be enough against New Orleans. The New England defense took a big hit with Judon and Christian Gonzalez going down. It's kind of sad, man. Like, I grew up, the Patriots were always relevant, and this is like one of the first years. I know last year they didn't have a great showing, but they're really one of the irrelevant teams in football now, and that's crushing to say, because we remember the 2 decades of dominance they had under Brady and Belichick. So really kind of sad to see the direction they're going in. Earlier this week, they trade for J.C. Jackson after not wanting to pay him. So it's kind of ironic they end up bringing him back. The Chargers were just looking to unload this guy after a series of on and off the field issues. The guy wasn't playing well on the field. He was getting in trouble off the field. He was a healthy scratch last week. It just was he wasn't that good of a player in LA. And that, I think that was the biggest piece, is they bring him in. Asante Samuel Jr. as a rookie played better than he did. He had tons of picks when he was playing with New England. I think he had 1 in his entire tenure in LA. And it was that was kind of embarrassing. So hopefully he's able to bounce back again in New England's system, and Belichick is able to put him in position to succeed here. The big question is, can Mac Jones bounce back? With the way he's been playing, obviously Bill O'Brien's there. He's actually getting support this year, which is a little bit better than he's had in the past. The issue for me is they still don't have a number 1 receiver. They paid Juju Smith-Schuster that money. He just he's been just awful. Like, none of these guys, I feel like, are number 1 receivers. Devontae Parker, I know he's been kind of hurt and banged up, but really, Mac Jones's best target has been Hunter Henry. And, like, that's just sad. Like, you need a receiver on this team that is good. I feel like it may be time for Belichick to kind of relinquish the GM role and just focus on coaching. And I hate to say that, because I've really developed a strong liking for Belichick since Brady's left. And I definitely think he's a genius when it comes to being a coach, but they've just had some really, really bad misses lately in the drafts and guys just not coming through and playing well. Really, since the year that they drafted Isaiah Wynn, you look at some of the draft picks they've had since then, and it just has been really, really like missing on a lot of them. So also, the big thing too on this team is Ramondre Stevenson just doesn't look like himself. He just has not looked like that dude this year. He's played a few good games. He just has not been as good as we were kind of hoping he would be. So, kind of hoping he gets back on the horse again this year and is able to show what made him so dynamic and so good last year. But I don't know. This New England team, it feels like it's kind of just vying for a top pick in the draft. And if Mac Jones doesn't start to turn it around, he's going to get replaced next year. That's definitely going to happen. So on the other side, New Orleans, Derek Carr, it seems like he's fighting through injury every single week. He did not look good last week. The one good bright spot that New Orleans did have was Alvin Kamara had a really good showing in his return from suspension. Just doing Alvin Kamara things, right? 13 receptions out of the backfield. Look for more of that. They need to get him involved early and often. I personally don't see Williams or Miller touching this guy in the backfield. They were right. The reports that came out that said Kamara's coming back, he's looking lean, he's looking mean. They're right. Like, he definitely looked explosive last week, like the old Alvin Kamara we were used to seeing. If that holds up, we'll see. But I really think with some of the playmakers they have on this offense, if he's able to be a version of his past self, I definitely see them pushing in this division, because I don't think any of the teams in this division are really that good that New Orleans can't compete with them. With Michael Thomas, Chris Olave, and Rashid Shaheed, I'm hoping they have a good game. We'll see exactly how they do against New England's secondary, but my big concern is, can New England get pressure on the quarterback? Look for New Orleans to exploit some of those key missing defensive pieces of New England. Some of the guys that I'd be targeting in this game, Stevenson, if I had to. I'm running Kamara out in one of my leagues. Actually, two of them. I'm running him out. Olave as well. And then if I need to, I'd consider Thomas, or maybe in a real deep league, I'd be looking at Shaheed. There was actually a guy in one of my leagues this week that dropped Stevenson. I don't know exactly why he would have done that, but I just couldn't spend enough fab to be able to get him. Just please do not be that guy and drop him. If there's anything that's going to work in New England the rest of the year on offense, it's going to be him. So do not give up on him. Don't drop him. Please don't be that guy in your league. Okay, moving on here. We've got, let's see. Oh, it's Bumpy Johnson. Welcome to the chat, man. Welcome to the chat, Bumpy Johnson. Good to have you in here, man. Oh yeah, listen, I gotta cover him, but I promise I'll be kind, man. So, listen, Baltimore, they're gonna continue winning against the Steelers this week. Pittsburgh, they're likely going to be playing with a banged up Kenny Pickett, and it's just, this team right now is in a little bit of rough shape. Their defense is a little banged up. They've got Highsmith that's nursing injuries and stuff. They're just not looking like the Steelers of old. And I've heard a lot of debate this past week on this game in particular, this rivalry game. It just, it's just really tough, man. I'm having a hard time not smiling reading this chat. It's a tough thing for this team, because we've been used to seeing really good teams between these two coaches, right? Harbaugh and Tomlin, through the last 7-8 seasons, right? Even dating back when Roethlisberger was with the Steelers, you could even go past back the last 15 years, and you're always seeing good teams playing against each other in this rivalry. I think Baltimore definitely has the upper hand now, and a lot of that comes back to quarterback. It's the NFL is a quarterback-driven league. Right now, Lamar Jackson is in line to be able to have an MVP year, and he's that type of player. I just don't think Pittsburgh has a guy like that on their team. And it's tough. Kenny Pickett, I'm not saying he can't be that guy someday. I just don't see it right now, and playing hurt is not a good way to be able to do it. So I just it seems like Baltimore's catching their stride a little bit after beating up on the Browns. Even though the Browns were missing Deshaun Watson, Baltimore still laid a beating on them. And I think in this division in particular, this is exactly where Baltimore wants to be. And Cincinnati is as far away as possible from them. And that's definitely a good thing that bodes well for Baltimore. So if Pittsburgh can pull an upset here and be able to knock Baltimore off, that would be great. I just do not see that happening. So really, Pittsburgh needs to get more out of their running game with Najee Harris and Jalen Warren. We did see a good game last week from Najee Harris, and he broke some good runs. So all those people out there that want to give him a hard time, listen, he averaged 5.1 yards per carry last game on 14 carries, which wasn't bad, but this wasn't again. This was against a porous run D from Houston. So I'm trying to take it with a grain of salt. I've been a Najee Harris sympathizer. I really do like him. I just think, I don't know. I feel like this Pittsburgh team isn't as good as they used to be before. And it's very concerning the way they are and the way their offensive line is playing. So the big thing that I noticed with Harris, too, it really didn't make a difference in the game. They still got trounced by Houston. And that's kind of the sad part about it is you're seeing better games from him, but it doesn't it doesn't have that big of an impact. One big thing that I'm concerned about for Pittsburgh as well is Freiermuth is doubtful. He's definitely a, a key piece of this offense with Deontay Johnson out. Another piece of that too is Dan Moore. And listen, if Dan Moore's out, which it looks like he's going to be today, that's going to be really tough for them. I know their right guard and tackle were questionable as well. This whole team right now is banged up. Mike Tomlin's basically shifting pieces around to try to make it work. If Freiermuth doesn't play today, we could see the emergence of Darnell Washington, which I don't know if you guys have seen this guy, but he's an absolute man-child. He's an absolute physical freak. So we could see him come out and actually have like a good game. I think he's like 6'8", 280, and he's an absolute monster playing tight end. So, and he can run the ball, like he gets the ball in his hands. He knows how to run. So I don't know. We could see him snag a few passes this week. Let's see. In terms of Baltimore and stuff, though, like I said, they've been playing the best football out of anyone in this division. And the interesting thing about that is they've been crushed by injuries this year. So both on the offensive side and the defensive side, they're starting to get healthier on the offensive side. Geez, it sounds like the cops are coming for me, guys. They're really not, but you could hear them on the bridge, I think. So. Yeah, so they started to get healthier on the defensive side of the ball, and I think Humphrey is going to be playing this week, which is going to be a good thing. Mark Andrews is starting to look better. He had the 2 touchdowns last week, which was really good, but they're starting to really get their groove going on offense. What they really need is Bateman and OBJ to come back and step it up because it's really been Lamar, a little tiny bit of Duvernay, but it's been Lamar, Mark Andrews, and Zay Flowers that have basically been getting it done for the Ravens on offense right now, and they've been running the ball decently, not great. So really like to see that. Lamar just needs to do Lamar things, right? Like he needs this receiver core to step up big time. Like I mentioned, with OBJ and Bateman, it's just been kind of embarrassing. I really had big expectations out of them, and if you're getting paid $15 million a year to go out there and catch balls, you got to be doing it. I feel like it's been half a decade since we've seen OBJ be relevant. He had that one game in the Super Bowl that he was really good, and then he ends up getting hurt, but I just really haven't seen much out of him. So guys that I'm targeting in this game, I'm looking at Lamar, Andrews, Flowers, only Najee or Warren if you're desperate, which I am in some of my leagues. So what do you mean, what did I do? Oh, yeah. Oh, because the cops are coming. Listen, I'm trying to behave myself. I'm doing the best I can. They don't let me drink beers on stream. The cops are coming, yeah. They definitely are. You know what I did? I gave bad analysis to someone, and they found out, and that's why they called the cops on me. That's got to be what it is. So, All right, let's move on here. Enough trashing on your Steelers. We've got the other Pennsylvania team. We got Philly at the Rams. So I think Jalen Hurts and Philly, they're going to look to put together their first complete game against the Rams. And this should be, I'm hoping for a very high-scoring game in this one. Hurts, it just keeps coming back, and they are winning these close games. It's very important that he's able to do this, but it's just not sustainable. That's the hard part. You saw last year with Minnesota; they were winning all those close games and stuff, those one-score games. It's just not sustainable to win long term by that. They really need to be able to put together a game where they run the ball effectively, they throw the ball well, and they play good defense. Um, it seems that they're using AJ Brown better. You know, he had 13. They got him involved early. He had 13 targets last game. Devonta Smith too. He was crucial as well. 9 targets for him. I want to see Goddard involved more. Swift has been running the ball on fire lately. He's looked really good. But in my opinion, I think what this team in Philly needs to do is at least give double-digit targets to both Smith and AJ Brown every single game. If they're able to do that, I think it's going to be a lot better. You know, I really think they're your two best playmakers on offense. You have to be able to get them involved early and often, and you're going to establish good leads that way, being able to do that and push the ball down the field. You know, Swift came back down to earth last week, but they need to be able to continue running the ball effectively, especially behind this offensive line. I mean, you've got Aaron Donald on the other side. He's going to be coming after and wreaking havoc all game. So you really need to be able to get two guys on him, blocking him away from the runs on every game. I think the one thing that kind of hurts Swift in terms of fantasy is the Hurts tush push, right? And this has been like controversy among the whole league. People are up in arms about it. Listen, until they ban it, keep doing it. Other teams have been trying to do this. They just don't do it as well as Philly does. So I really want to be able to see them keep utilizing this, and maybe next year we could talk about banning it. But until they ban it, keep doing it, Philly. You're doing it better than everybody else, and you know I love it with Jalen Hurts on my fantasy team. So with the defense, I just think they give up too many points on a weekly basis. It puts too much stress on their offense. You know, they're very stout in run defense, but the big issue is that they're not being able to. They're just in terms of passing plays, they're giving up way too much through the air. And you look at them; they're going to have their hands full with Nakua and Kupp back. That's right. You heard me right. Cooper Kupp is coming back. So the prodigal son does return this week. And I can't wait. I drafted him in one of my leagues. I ended up picking him up in a guillotine league too. I cannot wait to see Cooper Kupp come back and actually play well. Fingers crossed that he is fully healed and ready to go, and we get some of the old Cooper Kupp back. I've also loved the way this Rams team has played without him. They're likely not going to be able to run the ball effectively against Philly, so they're going to need to throw. But Stafford's shown that he's capable of doing that, right? You've seen the games with Nakua and then Tutu Atwell. They played very, very well doing that. And now he gets his favorite target back, his best friend in Cooper Kupp. I just think they're going to need more out of Higbee too. You know, Tyler Higbee got his money. Now it's time to go out and earn it, man. Like I don't want to see any drop passes, nothing like that. You really got to be able to step up and play this game if you guys are going to give Philly a run for their money. So on defense, you know they're going to have a tough day. They're going to be playing one of the top teams in the league. Hurts is very solid in terms of decision making. They need to be able to capitalize on any mistakes that he makes. If they do that, they may have a chance. But I have Philly scoring a lot of points in this game, and I'm hoping the Rams can keep up. But I have Philly winning this game. You know, some of the guys I'm looking at targeting here, Hurts, Swift, Brown, and Smith, I think those are kind of no-brainers. I'm not leaning on Goddard unless I absolutely have to in fantasy. Stafford in deeper leagues, definitely Nakua, and I'm rolling Kupp out there for sure. People are really concerned about how Nakua's value is going to go down with Kupp coming back. I think they do things differently. Nakua can play on the outside, and if you look at a lot of the snaps that he was taking and the routes he was running routes on the outside as well. Cooper Kupp is that slot receiver. He's not really that guy that splits out wide and is that one-on-one guy. He's going to beat you over the middle on crossing routes and curls and stuff like that. So I really think they do two very different things in terms of being receivers and have a little bit of crossover. So if you drafted Cooper Kupp and you're not starting him this week, you deserve to lose in fantasy. And yeah, sorry, I'm not sorry for that. Anyone that drafted him that's not playing him this week, if you lose, you definitely deserve it. All right, so moving on here, we've got the Bengals in Arizona. I think Burrow and Chase finally get on the same page this week in Arizona. They have to. They got to figure it out. I envision a 2-touchdown game from Chase. I'd really like to see him get going on that. And, these guys have been working hard to get this done. It's not like they're not. It's just Burrow is a different guy than I think a lot of the other quarterbacks in the league. And I'm not saying the other quarterbacks are soft or anything like that. But Joe Burrow is that guy that's going to go out and sign that $300 million contract. And even if he is hurt, he's still going to play because he really believes in his mind that even if he's hurt and playing at 60%, he still gives them a better chance to win than if he's not playing. So I really hope it's just been difficult to watch him this year and kind of frustrating, but they still aren't protecting him that well, which is kind of sad. Orlando Brown keeps blowing up on X constantly trending because he just you're seeing clip after clip of him just missing defenders and not being able to protect him properly. I think Kansas City misses him, but I don't think they're missing him a ton. And listen, we'll get to Kansas City in a bit and stuff because they've got their own problems with what's going on there. Higgins, he's nursing the rib injury. I expect him to sit this week. So even if he was playing or decided to suit up, which I'm pretty sure I saw an announcement saying that he's not, I wouldn't be playing him anyways. I just think you're going to see a big dip off in terms of production. Mixon, he's been averaging just over 4 yards per carry on the ground. But it really doesn't mean anything if your offense can't convert on third down. And that's been one of the big issues for the Bengals is their offense is coming off the field every fourth down. And that's it's sad. They're not converting when they need to. Arizona, on the other hand, it's kind of funny because they've been playing much better than the initial public perception of this team. There's a perceived dichotomy with poor records and people thinking this team sucks. And it's a very interesting thing because Arizona's 1-3, but they could easily be 3-1. If you look at the games that they were playing, I mean, this is the one when they had, they crushed Dallas. They didn't just beat them, they destroyed them. So when it comes to this, they had the big comeback by the Giants and stuff. And yeah, the Giants were real happy about that and stuff. But they could easily be that team that's 3-1. And this team does not appear to be tanking. They appear to be rallying around Joshua Dobbs, who I got to admit is playing some very inspiring football. So you look at some of his stats, 70% completion percentage, 99.4 QBR. But the big thing for me is no turnovers, man. No turnovers for this guy. And that's huge, especially in a league where that's going to end up killing you, turning the ball over. And he's not doing that. He's helping his team win every single time he's on the field. So I just think about it. Look at some of the teams that we've already talked about. How many teams in the NFL would kill for a quarterback that doesn't turn the ball over? I mean, there's a lot of them that really could use someone like that. So yeah, he really is a stud. Oh, man, look, it's Vash. What's up, bud? Welcome to the chat, man. Oh, so let's move on here real quick because I got a few more I got to get through before I let you guys go here. So just ending on Arizona here, they've been running the ball really well behind Connor. They're going to continue to play teams tough, so be on the lookout for them to knock off the next good team. I just hope it does not happen this week, and I don't think it does against Cincinnati. Some of the guys that I'm targeting in this game, Joe Burrow. Yes, guys, that was a heavy pause. I wasn't lagging. That was a heavy pause just because I am a little bit nervous about that, just as most Burrow managers are. But definitely running Chase out every single week. You have to run Mixon out there too. Dobbs in deeper leagues, I definitely would be, trotting him out there. In super flex leagues, I think he provides some interesting play as well. Connor as well, Marquise Brown. Michael Wilson is another guy that's actually playing himself into fantasy relevance. He had, I think it was 2 touchdowns on the season, but he could very well make your starting roster this week with some of the guys that are on bye week. So definitely watch the way he's playing, and if you have a chance to, pick him up and stash him before. And if he does nothing this week, drop him. But if he does pop off this week, at least you got him on your roster for next week. All right, let's move on to the next game we've got here. Now, this is a premier game because this is the Nathaniel Hackett homecoming. And it looks very different than we thought it was going to. We had this whole thing, soap opera drama of Aaron Rodgers marching into Denver, defending Nathaniel Hackett's honor like he was his girlfriend or something like that after Sean Payton kind of, made fun of him. But it's going to be, listen, I'm very excited for this game. I think it's like that guy that's kind of been talking shit behind your back, and now he shows up after school to fight, and you get to look him right in the eye. It reminds me a lot of like the Jim Rome, Jim Everett encounter. It's like, so you've been talking like this behind my back for quite some time now. And he's like, but now I'm here and I said it right to your face. And he's like, yeah, well, I'm pretty sure you probably won't say it again. And he's like, I bet I do. And he gets pummeled. So definitely feel like this is exactly the same thing that's going to happen here. But in all seriousness, people need to get off Russell Wilson's back on this game. This dude has been extremely easy to dislike, one of the most dislikable people in the NFL, but you need to stop listening to the major news networks about this dude. He is the top three in QBR this year in the league. Denver is not losing because of him. It is not his fault why they are losing these games. He is making plays. The defense that Denver has just can't stop a JV high school team. So I don't know what to tell you in terms of the people making fun of Russell Wilson. They don't know what they're talking about when they say that. His metrics are great. He's making good decisions. He's playing a lot better. And I think a lot of that is him actually feeling more comfortable and not as much pressure. But also Sean Payton, I think, has a lot to do with that as well. Some of the guys on offense that they have, Judy and Sutton, have been the talks of trade rumors this week. So definitely look at exactly how they're going to do this week. I wouldn't be surprised if they feature Judy this week and then look to dump him after the week. It could be to Carolina or a team, maybe New England he goes to. But you could look at some of these teams definitely dump some of these teams. You could look at Denver definitely dumping some of these guys, whether it's Sutton or Judy, and then you see a guy like Marvin Mims come into the fold and really start to elevate. Even if you look at Denver's top plays for the season of over 20 yards, I believe, I think Marvin Mims has 8 or 9 of them, which is absolutely insane. This guy does not play that many snaps, and all of the plays that they're using for him are all go routes. So I really think like this is a guy that needs to see the field more. And if you see a guy like Judy or Sutton move on and get traded, you're going to see that happen. In terms of the Jets, please let this be the week that Zach Wilson returns to earth. Now, listen, I'm tired of listening to podcasters talk about how good he looked and how he looked better than Mahomes. Listen, if you are on a podcast talking about how Zach Wilson, the guy in the green looked better than the guy in the red, you're disgraceful. Stop poisoning the listeners' ears by saying something like that. Guys, it's 1 week. Let's look at the body of work. Please stop comparing a Super Bowl winning quarterback to guys that should be in Arena League backup. Like, Patrick Mahomes has 2 Super Bowl trophies. He's been to 3 Super Bowls. Zach Wilson barely qualified to hold Aaron Rodgers' towel on the sideline. Like, come on. I'm sick of hearing the comparisons for that. I realize people want to make it seem like it's better than it is in New York because they're from a big market and all of that. Really what needed to happen is New York needed to cut Zach Wilson in the offseason and retain Mike White. And if they did, guess what? They'd be in position to be a playoff team this year if they still had Mike White on the roster. Instead, they let him go. He signed with Miami, and you were able to see as a backup what he was able to do. If anything happens to Tua, guess who's stepping in and taking over the reins? So I hope Denver takes it to the Jets. They get some pressure on Wilson. I'm not sure if that's going to happen or not because their defense is so bad, but I got my fingers crossed that he's going to come back to earth, and then we can revisit the talks about. I'd rather listen on the radio about Kirk Cousins, the Jets wanting to trade for Kirk Cousins, or some of these other guys, maybe Tannehill, rather than have to listen to more talk about Zach Wilson progressing on the week or digressing. I don't know. I'm so sick of it. So let's get rid of this guy once and for all. The one thing that I didn't hear mentioned, and people kept talking about Zach Wilson last week, and that he was so good at playing against the Chiefs and stuff. Listen, the majority of what he did, he was playing against man coverage. Denver plays zone coverage, so I can't wait to see how this is going to work out because With man coverage, you can tell where the guys are following. They're following that man all over the field, right? He's running a curl, he's running a go route, he's running a cross, he's following him the entire way. In a zone, you don't know who has who. You need to be able to actually make the reads. And that is where we're going to find out if Zach Wilson can actually be good at that or if he can't. Now, moving on into something more positive, Breece Hall, it's going to be his first uncapped week, and he could pop off. I just somberly remember week 5 in Denver last year for him. It was a very sad day. That was the day he tore his ACL right at the next play after running like a 75-yard touchdown, or I think it was like a 65-yard touchdown. The next series, he ends up tearing his ACL, and that was kind of brutal to see. So I'm really hoping for better things for him in this game. I also think the Jets need to force the ball to Garrett Wilson more. I just, you got to give him a chance against Surtain. Just be careful. Surtain's one of the best cover corners in the league. He just, his dad was an excellent player. I think he's better. I think he is. He's more physical. He's better in terms of coverage, and his ball skills are incredible. So he's a very, very savvy defender. You just got to be able to give Garrett Wilson a little bit of confidence and get him involved early and often and put the ball where Surtain's not. Some of the guys that I'm targeting this game, Breece Hall, Garrett Wilson, you kind of have to. Listen, I drafted Garrett Wilson in the second round of some of my fantasy leagues. And listen, I am not happy with the production, but I've got to ride it out. And I've got to either hope for Zach Wilson to all of a sudden become a Hall of Fame quarterback or for him to suck bad enough that they trade for someone good. And then Garrett Wilson becomes relevant again. So that's what I'm hoping for. Some of the guys on the other side, Russell Wilson, Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy, only in deeper leagues. Listen, Russell Wilson's been a good starting QB1 this season. I definitely would keep running him out there. Marvin Mims, in an even deeper league, kind of a dart throw week in and week out. If he's going to catch something, it's going to be 1 to 2 balls or 2 to 3 balls, and maybe he gets a touchdown on it. You just don't know. I don't like the receivers this week for the Broncos against this Jets defense. I just don't. And if anything, I think, like I said, they're going to force the ball to Jerry Jeudy to try to up his stats, pad his stats, and then turn around and try to trade him. All right, so moving in here, we've got Kansas City at Minnesota. And so this is actually kind of an interesting game. I talked about it a little bit on the podcast with Al. But Kansas City week after week is continuing to improve. Now, listen, they didn't play that well last week in the second half against the Jets, and I know there's a lot of criticism that is coming Patrick Mahomes' way and everything, but the one big surprise here for this Chiefs team has been their defense. It's been the best part of the Chiefs this season. My only concern for them is the lack of sacks, right? They've got 10 on the season, which, okay, so it's a little more than 2 per game, but I really would like to see that number go up. And the lack of turnovers is a little scary too. They only have 5 on the season. I really want to see a lot more than that. You've got to be averaging 2 to 3 per game and really give this offense a chance. And if this defense can step up and start doing that, you're going to see the Chiefs really explode this season in terms of what they're able to do. I think, honestly, if you see the sacks and the turnovers go up, you're going to see nothing but the offense get better. They're going to have more opportunities to be able to do that. The other shocking yet kind of not shocking moment is their wide receiver and tackle play. It's just been kind of ugly. We kind of expected this coming into the season. I broke it down with Al before, but their receivers on the season have 45 receptions for 588 yards and 2 touchdowns. Let me put that in perspective for you. 45 receptions, 588 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Puka Nacua himself for the Rams this year has 39 receptions, so 6 less, 501 yards, 87 yards less, and 1 touchdown, so 1 touchdown less. It's scary what the receivers here have not been doing. And listen, I know Tony comes under a lot of harsh criticism and stuff. I'm not a real big fan of him. Sky Moore, I don't know. I just still have that image of him dancing at the White House after they won the Super Bowl, and I still am scratching my head saying, what did you do? Okay, you scored a touchdown in the Super Bowl. I get that, man. But, what have you done for this team? he's not that good. I can't stand it. I get into arguments with my friends about it. People that really are big advocates of his, and I'm just like, dude, he's not that good. He's not a number one receiver. I don't know who's going to step up on this team. They need more than Travis Kelce because he can't do it all himself. Um, Even more concerning than the receivers, though, I think are the tackles. Donovan Smith and Juwan Taylor. They're just not playing well. The penalties are very difficult to watch, very difficult to stomach. And I'll be honest with you, this team just cannot make a deep playoff run if this continues. They're going to get bounced early in the playoffs. Maybe they end up making it, into the divisional round or out of the wild card round. I just don't see them making it past that if they don't remedy these situations. They really need to get it figured out. And it's kind of interesting. An old offensive line coach for the Colts years ago, Tom Moore, I think he's in Tampa Bay now. He used to say, like, you know what your team is at the end of the preseason, right? Like, or the end of training camp. Like, you know what you're going to get. So there should be no surprises like midway through the season where you're like, oh, we're going to completely change what we're doing and stuff. You know what you had at the end of training camp, right? So you know the problems that you're going to have, you know the holes that you've got on your team, and you know what you're probably going to be good at. This was a problem that they envisioned before. They know it's a problem now. It's going to be a problem and it's very difficult to fix within the next couple weeks. Let's see how this team responds, and maybe Kelce and Mahomes have enough magic to be able to carry this team. I just think once you get up against some of these better teams like Buffalo, Miami, these teams, you're not going to be able to get away with that. On the other side, Minnesota, listen, I know a lot of people have soured on Minnesota. Al is an absolute hater of Kirk Cousins, and it bothers me so much because after watching quarterback, I really do like Kirk Cousins a lot. He's a guy that I'm on his side. I really think he's a good quarterback. He's made the best out of every situation he's been in, and he can only do so much. Yeah, he does make some boneheaded plays, but what quarterback in the NFL doesn't? Like, you see Dak, like, I see a lot of difference between him and Dak Prescott. Dak gets a ton of grief, and people are trying to lump him into the same category with Dak, and I don't see that. So I don't know. I really like this team in Minnesota. I think the offense is crazy good. I think they have the potential to go up against any team in the NFL and put up points. With Addison, Jefferson, Hawkinson, and Madison, I think this team is very, very good. They just need their defense to be able to get a few stops for them. They're just capable of mounting large comebacks. That's the way this team is built. Um, I'm concerned that they're going to be behind early in the game, and they're going to have to crawl back into the game. So definitely, I wouldn't be surprised if they're down 14-0 to Kansas City at the beginning of the game, and then all of a sudden they turn it on and they're able to catch up, and it's a 28-27 or 31-28 game at the end. Listen, Kansas City last week, like I mentioned, they had a rough second half against the Jets. That could happen again against this Vikings team. We'll have to kind of wait and see. But guys that I'm looking to target this week, obviously Cousins, Madison, Hawkins, Jefferson, and Addison. If you've got those guys, they should be in your starting lineup every week. I know Addison dropped a dud last week, but definitely look for a bounce back week from him. You've got Mahomes, Kelce, and Pacheco. Those guys I'm definitely running out there. Listen, Pacheco's been a very pleasant surprise. If it were me, I'd be looking to sell high right now. He's just not going to have too many games where he's touting 20-plus carries anymore. He's just not built that way. So I really think like that's a guy that I'd be looking to probably trade and try to get some good value for. Let's see here. Just moving on real quick. Let's go into the next game. I've got just a few more here for us, 2 more games, and then we'll get through some fantasy stuff, and I'll let you guys get ready for the 1 o'clock games here. So Dallas at San Francisco. There's no nice way to say this. Dallas is going to get stuffed by San Francisco today. It's just there's been too much talk lately about Dak. I don't really like it. It's kind of it's becoming lukewarm. Just a monotonous taste that I have going on in my mouth constantly. We've seen this story before of Dak going out and throwing 3 touchdowns and us focusing on the 1 interception that he threw. How many Super Bowls did they win doing that? They didn't win any, right? Like, it wasn't working. So, like, people saying, like, oh, yeah, he's not going out and throwing touchdowns the way he used to. He doesn't need to do that on this team. Really, what he needs to do is stick to the game script. And what they've been doing, yeah, they got bounced by Arizona that 1 week. I get that. Every team's going to lose a game. And it could be pretty ugly that when it does happen. But as long as he's sticking to the game script, which this team is built to do two things: run the ball very well and play good defense. The biggest issue for them that they've been having is they haven't been converting in the red zone and they haven't been converting on third down. And if you look at this team in the red zone last year, they were up over 70% of conversion rate in there. When you look at what they do this year, they're in the I think they're 30th in the league in terms of red zone conversion rate. That's awful. That's absolutely awful, and you're not going to make it deep into the playoffs playing that way. You can't settle for field goals in the red zone. You have to be converting touchdowns and punching the ball in. This is going to be their biggest test this week against San Francisco, and this is a hill they just haven't been able to get over in the past. It's been really tough for them. So we'll see. I expect a big game out of Tony Pollard, but I just don't know how. I hope they're able to kind of scheme him open with balls out of the backfield, running screens, stuff like that. This is a very, very good San Francisco defense they're playing against. So they're going to have to be very creative. Mike McCarthy is going to be tested and pushed to the limits this game in terms of his play calling. So with San Francisco, they just need to keep doing San Francisco things. You know, they signed Randy Gregory earlier this week. It gives them massive depth for their offensive line. And I said it to my buddy before, you know, that's a Super Bowl signing. And I don't mean that ensures them a Super Bowl. That's not what I'm saying. But this is one of those signings that says to the league, like, we're going for it this year. And we're not leaving any stone unturned. Randy Gregory coming off the bench to be able to rush the passer, I'll take that any day. He's going to keep the rest of these guys fresh, and who knows? Like, he may even have a chance to step in and crack the starting lineup. Him and Bosa in there at the same time with Warner. Oh my God, this team could be very, very good on defense, even better than they are. And Purdy, Mr. Irrelevant. I love how people. I'm doing the same thing, but people keep calling him that. But this guy is becoming more and more relevant each time he takes the field. And, you know, he's doing a good job of getting the ball into his playmakers' hands. He makes good decisions when he needs to. And when you have a guy like CMC, I mean, this dude's just inhuman. I mean, he's a highlight reel every single time he touches the ball. San Francisco, I think they've lost one game since he joined the team. I mean, it's just kind of rough. Man, oh boy, look at this. We've got some really, really rough chat going on here. Oh my God. Okay. Oh man, some really, yeah, I don't know. Someone help him out with some celery there. It seems like he needs some help. So, what I personally would like to see out of San Francisco, I want to see Kittle get more involved this week. I don't think they need that, but I would like to see it, especially for my fantasy team. Ayuk, Debo, CMC, Kittle, playmakers all around. They just need to stay healthy, and that's been kind of their bane the last few seasons, is that they just haven't been able to stay healthy. Seems they're doing that this year. I know Ayuk got a little banged up and stuff, but he seems to be back and playing well. I think that this hurdle is just too big for Dallas this week. They may play him tough, but San Francisco is just too good on both sides of the ball, and that's kind of the downfall for Dallas, is that I think they're going to find out this week just how much they miss Trayvon Diggs with him being injured. And that's just, a sad thing to see them go through. But they really needed him on this team to be able to make a good Super Bowl push. I don't know if no team is relying on just one player on defense, right? But they really needed him. And without him, I think they're going to find out that they can't really compete with a team like San Francisco because of that. So some of the guys that I'm targeting in this game, Purdy in deeper leagues, CMC, Ayuk, they're autos, right? Like, if you're not starting them, you're not playing fantasy football, right? Kittle and Debo, I'm less high on this week just because you never seem to know if they're going to be scripted out, who's going to be basically, you never know who's going to be the one to kind of pop off on this team. And when they're going to be fantasy relevant. But for Dallas, I'm looking at Pollard and Lamb. They're the two. I would consider Ferguson in deeper leagues. Jake Ferguson, I think he's been playing better. And definitely keep your eye on him. But one little hot take for this game, if Dallas is able to hang in there and Dak does throw the ball pretty well, look for Brandon Cooks to have his coming out party in a Cowboys uniform. I really think this could be the week that he ends up doing pretty well for them. All right, so last game we've got, this is the Monday night game, Green Bay at the Raiders. And listen, Jordan Love, I think, gets the Packers back on track against the Raiders. There's not much for me to say about this game. I'm just not a Raiders fan. More than not a Raiders fan, I'm not a McDaniels fan. I don't think he's NFL head coaching material. I really want to see this team start to play poorly just so that they can get him out of there and get a new coaching staff in. Jacobs should have a solid week, and Adams too, if they can get the ball in his hands. But there was some bad press actually coming out this week about Garoppolo, about him kind of being soft and not playing through pain and stuff like that. But I'm not really sure what to make of that. I kind of want to read more on it before I give my opinion. Just kind of a weird thing to kind of read about, because you haven't heard players talk about that really. But there was all the skepticism really, like when he was in New England, that like Brady wanted him out, and now it kind of seems like that wasn't the case. Like it wasn't Brady. It was like other people that wanted him out as well. I don't really know. So all I know is it takes a lot to be able to step onto the field every week, and I would never want to question someone's toughness. Uh, I don't know. I'd want to be absolutely 100% sure before saying something like that, because I just think that's a massive insult. These are some of the toughest people on the planet that suit up every week. Even guys like Pat McAfee, like playing punter and stuff, like it takes a lot to suit up every week. So I don't know. I don't want to question a guy's toughness like that. Um, if Las Vegas has a chance, it's going to be by pounding the rock with Jacobs and feeding Adams. I really think, Green Bay's given up 155 yards per carry on the ground. That could be a chance for Vegas to really get going. But honestly, I'm really hoping that Green Bay takes it to them, and we're looking at a new coaching system, new coaching staff that's going to be in Las Vegas sometime soon. Love, he's really starting to develop. He's going to have some ups and downs. Like people are expecting Aaron Rodgers level play. That's not going to happen right away. And I've noticed that he started to build some of that rapport with the rookies, Jaden Reed, Luke Musgrave. I'm rostering both of them in multiple leagues. Like they're definitely good guys. I drafted both of them really high on them this year. And you've seen like the plays. Yeah, Jaden Reed. Yeah, his the box scores haven't looked great, but he's played very, very well. And there's a few drops that he's had kind of near the end zone and stuff like that, or balls going through his hands. Defender knocks it out, something like that. Definitely if he's able to remedy those, he's putting up a lot of points on this team. Also, Love's had some really good downfield throws to Dobbs. Watson, he was pretty much irrelevant last week. I think we are still probably 2 weeks away from seeing him kind of really deliver the way we were used to seeing it last year. And listen, I know Watson had a touchdown last week. I'm not ignoring that. What I'm saying is, like, I don't think we're not seeing him have a meaningful wide receiver one game like we were last year when he was popping off with Aaron Rodgers. That's the type of game I'm expecting from him, where he's that alpha dude, and I just haven't seen it. 2 catches with one for a touchdown for like 26 yards. Come on, like that's not a Christian Watson game that we're impressed by. Aaron Jones, he's still being hampered by the hamstring. But I think the big story this week probably for Green Bay was losing Bakhtiari. And it's a big deal. It really is. I hope he's not done. But, I mean, this is his 5th surgery on that knee. Really, really scary kind of seeing that. So wishing him the best of luck and a speedy recovery. Guys I'm targeting on this, Jordan Love, Dobbs, Reed, Musgrave, and Watson in deeper leagues, right? Like, I still said I think we're 2 weeks away from seeing Watson really pop off, but in a deeper league, especially with the teams and some of these guys on bye, I could see him floating into the starting lineup somewhere. I'm staying off of Aaron Jones this week. I don't trust him yet to really be back to the way he was before. I think that hamstring's still bothering him. For Vegas, Jacobs and Adams are kind of no-brainers every week. Jacoby Myers, he disappeared last week. It just really, I need to see more from him before I'm going to consider starting him. But okay, so jumping into those, let's see if we had any questions real quick. I don't see any in here that we had. Okay, so some of the bye weeks that came up: Cleveland, Chargers. We've got Seattle and Tampa Bay as well. So there's some big-name starters out this week for these guys. Cleveland, you're looking at Deshaun Watson, Jerome Ford, and Amari Cooper. And for the Chargers, Herbert, Allen, Eckler. I mean, also Quentin Johnston. You've also got, I'm blanking on his name right now, but their other receiver as well. Mike Williams is hurt, but I'm trying to think of the other guy. I just can't right now. Seattle, you've got Geno Smith. He's going to be out on bye this week. Kenneth Walker. DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, Jackson Smith, and Jigba, who really hasn't been doing much, but he's on bye as well. And in Tampa Bay, you got Rashad White, Mike Evans, and Godwin. Maybe in Superflex leagues, you're rostering Baker as well, but they're all on bye this week. So some hot pickups you could look at. And listen, these guys should have already been. This first guy I'm going to talk to you about should have already been on rosters, but Jamison Williams, he was not stellar last year, but he's definitely capable. He just had the torn ACL. Now he's back from the suspension. He was a little hurt in the preseason and stuff. But Detroit needs a guy that can stretch the field, and this is a guy that can do it. So cops are coming again, boys. Cops are coming to get me. So Jamison Williams, definitely a guy that you could see have a good week this week. I think they're going to ingrain him in and try to get him active early in this offense, especially with Amon-Ra out. Or at least I believe Amon-Ra was doubtful. I'm pretty sure he's going to be out with that abdominal strain. So you've also got Chuba Hubbard. He received the same number of touches as Miles Sanders. I was mentioning that before. He'd be a decent pickup. Jaleel McLaughlin out of Denver, with Javonte Williams likely out. I expect him to be able to outsnap and outproduce P. Ryan. I think he's going to be talented enough there to get enough carries, but be careful with that. Be guarded because he's going up against a pretty good Jets defense there. And the last guy, I mentioned him earlier, but Michael Wilson, if he's still available, he's been somewhat productive this year, the 2 touchdowns on the season, but had 7 targets last week against San Francisco, against a good San Francisco team. So definitely be on the lookout for him if he's on waivers for you. Let's see, some lineup questions, and these were just guys that reached out to me on Twitter, so thank you very much for doing that. Steve from Connecticut, he was asking about Terry McLaurin or Jahan Dotson. He asked, any hope for these dudes? He's rocking them in different leagues, but he doesn't feel good. I was like, listen, man, McLaurin had a good outing against Philadelphia. He had 8 receptions on 10 targets. Dotson had the 4 receptions on 9 targets and a tutty. But looking at this, I think both are viable. They definitely have a path for them to be successful because they're playing from behind often. We saw the way they played against Chicago. They made some catches. People keep saying they need a coaching change, but listen, even if Ron Rivera is out in Washington, Bieniemy is still going to be calling the offensive plays. If they bring in a new coach, that coach isn't going to be calling the plays. And if they do get rid of Rivera, they're probably going to elevate Bieniemy to the head coaching position. So what my advice is if it were me and I was checking on them, I'd be going McLaurin. That's kind of my thought on it. I like him better with Sam Howell. It's kind of sad because you saw the way the game went on Thursday. They sat by and watched DJ Moore pop off with the 8 catches, 230 yards, and 3 touchdowns. The sad part is Sam Howell threw for 388 yards, and they combined, Jahan Dotson and McLaurin combined for 79 yards the other night. That is disappointing football. That means 300 yards went to other guys on that offense. And there is no one else on that offense that are better receivers are better at catching the ball than those two. It's just there's no one else. So with me, it has me scratching my head. And I realize Bieniemy tries to get all these guys involved in stuff, but it was not a good sign. If I had to lean either way, I would say McLaurin right now, just because I think he has more skill right now to be able to come out of this and turn it around next week. In upcoming weeks, they play the Falcons and Giants next. I'd have some faith, not much. But like I said, if it were up to me, I'd be leaning McLaurin. Bill from Virginia, from VA, I'm assuming it's not Veteran Affairs. It's got to be Virginia. He asked if it was time to drop Kyle Pitts. And listen, it does not feel good seeing Jonnu Smith getting more snaps. That's a bad feeling. I don't know what's going on in Atlanta in terms of quarterback play. I feel like you could run you or me out there and we'd be okay. And maybe throw less picks than Desmond Ridder would. There's rumors that Pitts is hurt. I'm out on him. Listen, I have been since his rookie season. I drafted him his rookie season. He sucked at the beginning. Then he came on with Matt Ryan. He was doing pretty well and finished the season very strong. And I was out on him after that, once Matt Ryan left, just because I knew that they weren't going to be able to feed the ball to him consistently. There was hopes. The guy's a freak athlete, but I just remember being disappointed when someone drafted him in front of me in 2022. So not this year, but last year. And I lucked out. He was awful, man. He was absolutely awful. I would drop him, man. Unless there's going to be a quarterback change, maybe you pick up another tight end and you wait on him for another few weeks. But once the trade deadline passes, I drop him if he hasn't done anything. Jonnu Smith's a better tight end there right now. They're not feeding Pitts. So I'm sorry, man. It sucks to have drafted him and then be dealing with that. Last one here, Max. You didn't say where you were from, but he was asking Dak Prescott or Jared Goff. He sent this to me yesterday, so I assume he's asking for rest of the season. Maybe not this week, but I'll give you both. So Jared Goff, it's definitely Jared Goff for me. It's not that Dak isn't capable. I'm not seeing enough from him to make him reliable. And Goff is in his first week with Jameson Williams back. He has that guy that can stretch the defense now. Once Amon-Ra comes back, he's going to play well with him. Sam Laporta's been good. Jahmyr Gibbs out of the backfield. They're running the ball effectively. It's setting up the pass. Goff isn't making a lot of bad decisions. I don't know. Like, even if you look at the fantasy playoffs, like none of the defenses that Goff's going to be playing against scare me. And I really think that's a good thing. Like, I know we're scary to be talking about fantasy playoffs in week 5, but that is something you got to kind of think of later in the season, right? Like, for me, it would be Goff, and Dak hasn't. If Dak had already gone out and had multiple touchdown games, I'd say, you know what, like, I'd go, definitely consider Dak. But for me, it's Goff all the way. And just in case you missed what I said earlier, I'm just not super high on Goff this particular week. I think they're going to run the ball a lot. He like I mentioned, he's likely not going to have Amon-Ra this week, so not a great start today. He should be okay. He could prove me wrong, but I just think he's going to be scripted out of it because I think they're going to run the ball all over Carolina. All right, so let's just check here. All right, no questions that we've got. That's okay. Again, guys, I just wanted to thank you all for watching and chatting. I know I went a little over today, but I really appreciate all the support. You guys hopping in and helping me out. I'll look to be back next Sunday at 11:30 a.m. Eastern, even though it's 6:30 start time here in Turkey. But yeah, I'll be back with some more NFL and fantasy coverage for you. Listen, if you like the comment, definitely make sure you follow on the stream. I'll post on Twitter. I'll post on videos on YouTube as well, so you can hop over to my channel on YouTube. It's linked right in my profile here on Twitch. Definitely drop a subscribe, a like. Let me know what you think I could do better. If you like the content, let me know that you like it as well. You can find me on Twitter or X at Willie Creamin FF. But I just wanted to say good luck today, everyone, in fantasy, and peace out. I really appreciate all of it, and I hope you guys have a wonderful night. Thank you.